the character of Deathlock, who in the comics was like he was powered by future technology, and he was kind of like a mercenary kind of character. Was he?
Yeah, no, he's. I remember reading Deathlock comics when I was 13 and never not being familiar with the character at all. It was a Marvel anthology comic that was released in 1991. Show my age now. I think it was called Havoc or something, and one of the stories in it was about Deathlock. Okay. And it was at that time I thought, oh, this is a great character. It is, and if they do it properly, now that's a big if considering what we've seen already on Shield, but if they do it properly, it could be a turning point for the show.
He's a character. To be honest with you, I'm not terribly familiar with him. I think he's sort of a character that one week he could be a good guy, the next week he could be a bad guy. He just picks sides as he goes along. So that's one thing as well. Now they're also planning on introducing Jamie Alexander, who you've seen Thor: The Dark World, right?
Yes.
Did you love it?
I wouldn't say loved it. It was good.
Okay. Jamie Alexander is definitely a high point of the Thor movies, right? As Lady Sif. Yeah. Now apparently her character is going to be popping up in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. very soon as well, and she's going to be chasing a character called if I can pronounce this properly, Lorelei. Is that right? Lorelei?
We'll go with yeah.
Yeah. Who's going to be played by Alina Satine. Now, apparently this character is one of Thor's ongoing villains. She's sister to Amora, the Enchantress in the comics. And again, this is, the question is, will this mean that we could be seeing the character in Thor 3? Is this universe building stuff? This is what we want from S.H.I.E.L.D., isn't it?
Definitely. We want more, this was correlation with, the Avengers, with the whole Marvel mythos, rather than, a couple of people in suits sitting around an office talking about stuff and then having, a ropey adventure that's on a par with, some sub-alphas type romp. I don't know where I was going with that.
Yeah, but I like this idea because we've a bit of news coming up as well about Thor 3. But the idea of introducing the character in this and then maybe expanding that character in the Thor universe, this show should be going hand in hand. But I think a big problem with the S.H.I.E.L.D. TV series is that it doesn't feel connected to that universe. It doesn't really. It's just it's just lying there.
It's been a huge disappointment so far, to be honest. I might start watching again because I hear when the show reaches its conclusion that there'll be big tie-ins with Captain America: The Winter Soldier. So that might be a good jumping on point. Yeah.
Okay, we'll be talking about the Winter Soldier a wee bit later on as well. What about the Raid? Gareth Evans, the director of the Raid. You've seen the Raid?
I saw the Raid for the first time about 2 months ago.
Did you love it?
I thought it was awesome.
It's a great movie.
It was amazing. It was some of the best fight scenes I've ever seen.
Right, now apparently he has been talking to Total Film magazine, and the idea came up of him doing an Iron Fist. Because there is an Iron Fist TV series coming from Netflix, which we know it was announced a few months ago, and he was asked about would he be interested in doing Iron Fist. Because let's be honest with you, he's the fight choreography guy right now. Everybody's loving the Raid, and so he said he's been interested in it. He says he's not adverse to it, but he said that his big thing right now, if would be doing something like that, and would be would Marvel let him do an R-rated movie?
Well, that's the thing. There are Marvel characters who really do lend themselves to that. Iron Fist being one, but I think the obvious R-rated Marvel character and I think they haven't got it right because they haven't got that balance of the character right. Yeah. So far is the Punisher. Because Punisher has had 3 items, 3 movies now, and all of them have had good elements. It was just that none of them have had all the right elements. I know, it's like if you took parts of the 3 films together, you could probably get one really good solid film.
Yeah. I really like Thomas Jane as the Punisher. I
thought he was a solid choice. He's a good actor, but he was kind of let down by a script that wasn't very Punisher-like.
Yeah.
Where the Punisher was phoning up people, giving them anonymous tips that their wives were having affairs with, something off EastEnders, for quite frankly.
Okay, do you think an event... Firstly, do you think there's space in the current Marvel universe for R-rated movies? Do you think there is a place for those kind of movies?
Think now what the characters that Netflix have got the rights to with Daredevil as well. I think Daredevil and Iron Fist would be...
It's kind of Marvel Knightsy, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that if they could do something there and sort of have not a parallel universe, but have its own kind of...
Like Torchwood, kind of?
Yeah, something like that, where you
better,
could...
hopefully.
Only watchable. Yeah. If you could... because Daredevil's a very complex character, and some of the Daredevil stories are very complex, as I say, very dark, and, I'm really I'm really looking forward to seeing what to do with him, because after Spider-Man and Captain America and about 74 other Marvel characters, he's my favourite Marvel character.
Okay, right, okay.
Yeah, I just love them all.
But so you think, like, I don't know if I think there's that. What am I trying to say here? I don't know if I want to see adult versions of these characters, but I know what you're saying, like a slightly more,
It doesn't have to. When we say adult, there's this thing where you're thinking gratuitous. That there's like Torchwood. Let's be honest, Torchwood was adult in the sense that it became adult as they thought they had to have like graphic sex scenes and things, which made it more tittillating than anything else. It was the wrong sort of adult show. It was kind of seedy, whereas you can have complex, complex characters with really weighty issues, and it doesn't always have to be like big bright spandex clad superheroes. There's room for it all, and I think there are characters in the Marvel universe who lend themselves more to that than they do towards the kiddie friendly end of it.
Yeah, you see, the thing is, I think I talked with Jay about this a few weeks ago as well, that the Punisher character, while I think Punisher could belong in this Marvel universe. I think he could fit in this Marvel
Absolutely,
universe
yes.
very easily.
Yeah.
Because I grew up with the Punisher that I grew up with was sort of early 90s when he was running around with Spider-Man a lot.
Wore white gloves up to his elbows.
Yeah.
Like he had to do dishes.
Yeah. But he was still, I loved that Punisher.
Yeah.
And he was still the Punisher, but he wasn't like blowing people's heads off, and but he was still kind of the Punisher.
Yeah.
So I think there's a balance in there.
Yeah, I'm a big fan now of Garth Ennis' work on Punisher, especially the Punisher Max series. But if they did bring that to onto the screen, it would be the first 21 certificate movie ever.
Right, okay, Joss Whedon. We talked a bit about Joss Whedon earlier on in Captain America 2. He was asked recently if Captain America 2 would have any impact on the Age of Ultron, the Avengers 2 movie, in which he said the events of Captain America the Winter Soldier will definitely affect the world of Avengers 2, but at the end of the day I have to make my movie assuming that people will only have seen the first one, or possibly not even seen the first one. I can't assume that everybody went to see Thor the Dark World, Captain America, Iron Man 3 in between. I have to go from one movie to the next and be true to what's happened in the previous movies, but not to be slavish to it, or slavish to it. The model I'm always trying to build from, or my guiding star, is The Godfather 2. Now this is interesting, where a ton has happened in between, and it's a very different movie from part 1, but you don't really need any of that information. Godfather 2, comparing Avengers 2 to Godfather 2, that's big stuff.
Yeah, so we can expect to see Tony Stark going down to opening a casino in Las Vegas at the start, and then maybe who's going to be Fredo then?
Yeah, and waking up with like horses' heads or stuff in beds. It's heavy stuff. It's heavy stuff. Mm-hmm. But Age of Ultron, Captain America 2, everything I've seen of it so far, it looks fantastic.
It does. It looks.
Doesn't it?
Looks the business. I have to say. I really everything. Even Robert Redford. Like,
I know.
Come on.
Yeah.
It's Robert Redford.
I don't know if I've talked to you about this. My theory on Robert Redford. Spoilers if I'm right, but this is completely just me making this up as I go along. I think he's going to be Red Skull.
Oh, never thought of that.
I think Redford's Red Skull. Because if you remember in The Winter Soldier, there was a guy who was sort of manipulating S.H.I.E.L.D. and at the end he turned out to be Red Skull.
Well, I don't need to finish The Winter Soldier now.
Well, you don't know who it is. You don't know who it is until the very last page. But that's my theory. I think Robert Redford, because he seems to be too big an actor to just have in such a small role.
Yeah, I agree with you there. That is a very good theory. Wouldn't surprise me at all. But I'm just delighted Robert Redford's involved, because it gives a certain assurance of a certain quality. Yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, we've got Robert Redford now, we've got Michael Douglas. It's great. I love this idea that, like with Captain America, that it didn't all just start with Iron Man. That Tony Stark wasn't the beginning of it. That there was a world of these characters before that. I love that idea. And when you have older actors like that, that means that it gives it that sort of longevity, that gravitas a wee bit more. So I do like that idea. Captain America 3... I haven't even seen Captain America 2 yet, but Captain America 3 apparently is going to be holding on to the same directors as the last movie, Anthony and Joe Russo, because apparently Marvel are so happy with what they've seen of the Winter Soldier that they really just want to keep them on.
Well, if they are going down the route of the Winter Soldier, it leads to a certain event happening with the character of Captain America.
Okay.
And with the fact that the Crossbones is apparently Frank Grillo.
Yes.
Is playing Crossbones. Yeah. If he's, well, without saying going into detail or spoilers, if anybody has read the comics or is familiar with Captain America continuity, there's sort of chain of events that results in a very iconic moment in the character's history. So if that's the case, they're probably not going to cover it all in one film. So I'd say part 3 would probably be like a direct sequel where they're sort of expanding on that story. So
Okay.
I'd say it makes sense to have the same directors involved if it's as good now as everybody thinks it is.
Yeah. Okay, so that means speculation now is that Captain America 3 will probably be around May 6th or July 8th, 2016, as Marvel has already earmarked that as a Phase 3 date.
Mhm.
So, what do you think? Would that be 2 years? Not 2 years from
Yeah,
now?
no, that makes sense. And I mean, if you look at that July 8th date there for Captain America, you could see that being moved forward by 4 days, couldn't you?
Yeah, you could actually. Actually, that would be pretty good. Too.
Yeah, well, if any Marvel executives are listening here, I am going to put copyright on that idea. So if you want to take it, you can give me all your money.
I don't know how I feel about this. I kind of like the idea of kind of like the Bond movies and everything else, of all the movies kind of feeling different. Rather than using, because I know obviously they used Jon Favreau to direct Iron Man and Iron Man 2. But I just like the idea of different directors doing each movie.
Well, see, the problem with the Bond films is that they always get different directors to do the same film as they did last time.
Yeah.
I've noticed, I think maybe the one sort of franchise that, to me, has almost been a completely different film with the same characters all the time as the Mission Impossible films.
Yeah. Okay.
They're no sort of resemblance to each other, which
just that central character. Yeah.
works in a way.
Yeah. Okay, I probably should have used that. I probably should have used that example rather than James Bond. But I do like the idea of every movie have a kind of different flavour, you know?
Absolutely, yeah.
Having said that, when I come out of Captain America 2 hailing it as the greatest action movie I've ever seen, then I probably will be very happy with that choice.
So no big expectations.
No, never would do that.
It was only brilliant. I want a refund.
Have you been... Empire did a big event this week, just passed with Bryan Singer, related to X-Men Days of Future Past. Were you following this event, 25 hours long? No? With the covers?
Oh, yes. Can I just ask, who is going to buy 25
I know.
issues of the same magazine for different covers?
I actually tweeted them and said, do you really think somebody's going to spend, I think it was £200 and something pound? It works out to buy every cover, but they didn't tweet back. No, well, okay, but what it was very interesting to see what they're doing with all the characters. A lot of characters, of course, that we already know. Future versions of the characters, Magneto, Xavier, Wolverine. But we did the one that seems to be the character that seems to be making the biggest impact in the fan community is the Sentinels.
Yeah, well, we did see the Sentinels in X-Men: The Last Stand.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody really enjoyed the X-Men: The Last Stand, apart from Brett Ratner's accountant. But if they get the Sentinels right, it could be amazing, because what the X-Men has kind of lacked is almost like a kind of a central iconic villain, with almost like in a henchman role. Obviously, Magneto, is a great character, but you have Star Wars has stormtroopers.
Yeah.
And the Sentinels, are almost like Terminator-like in their resilience. So, if they can bring that sort of threat to the heroes, and you could have a very tense and exciting film.
Okay, well, what we saw in the trailer, the Empire covers, is what they did with the showed sort of future and past versions of all the characters, because as we know, the whole idea behind Days of Future Past is to mingle the two timelines, two very distinct timelines that are currently happening in the X-Men movies.
Yeah.
So what we saw past version and future versions of the Sentinels, and the past version kind of looks like they look in the comics.
Yes.
Sort of, there's an obvious
yeah.
homage there. But the future one was just like this sort of big black, almost liquid metal looking character. Did you see the future one?
Yeah, but it does remind me of something. I can't put my finger on it, but it almost has some... I'm not sure of the scale of it. Is it going to be a couple of stories high, or is it going to be...
Yeah, because if you look at his feet, there's a car lying on the side.
There you go. 10 out of 10 for observation for Ryan.
So it is pretty big. But the Empire talked to the production designer John Muir, who's been working on it. He said that the future Sentinels are biomechanical weapons. We had to come up with what would be the ultimate version that could actually, in principle, stop the X-Men. We started with this idea that they were always made of magnetic plates that could slap over each other, imagining that the plates could contract or grow, so the Sentinel could be skinny to get through a small space, or the plates could open up to become a much, much bigger shape, so they're virtually unstoppable. So kind of like that. Tell me about the Sentinels. I'm not X-Men kind of passed me by. Are the Sentinels like that in the comics?
Well, there's been various kind of, I suppose, versions of the Sentinels. I remember in the late 90s, I think it was when The Matrix was released, oddly enough, pretty shortly, the Sentinels turned into these humans that they could transport from one body to another.
Right.
You know, like so wherever the XMen were, all of a sudden the Sentinels could hijack someone's consciousness and become a human.
Okay.
You